We've had the wood cook stove for a number of years now, thanks to Graham and Larissa, and we actually have the flame view. And
the one that's out there.
And it came to, I used it on and off. I got used to it, but I found that I was always going back to my old stove when I was in a hurry. I'd get home and then we went off grid completely. And so the old stove went
out the door.
And so now it's been cooking on the sun or cooking with the wood cook stove. That's it for the last couple of years now. So I would have to say that cooking with the wood cook stove, in general, the best thing is, to have, remember Ivan and Phyllis were up here and she said, he keeps the wood coming and she does the canning and stuff like that. Well, for me, my boys have to keep the wood coming and I do the cooking. It is really nice to have more than one person when you're doing a wood cook stove. Because that fire, when I get home and we want a meal right away, you can do that. You can, if you have really dry wood and it's split nice and small, you can get a hot fire and you can get things cooking very quickly. I find I really like baking bread with the wood cook stove. It gives a very nice bread. Baked potatoes, those are things that you can really start with because you can't go wrong with them. If you're too low a temperature, it's just going to take you longer. Too high, they're not really going to burn, they're just going to cook faster, right? So those are the things that we started with. And then I would say the things that take more practice is things like banana breads and things that have leavenings like that you have to maintain at the same temperature for like an hour maybe, to keep them from rising and falling and stuff like that. That takes a little more practice, but what you would do in that case is you would have your nice hot fire and then let it sort of regulate. Like you want to give it some time so that it's not still peaking, so you know that it's not still going up and up and up and up. And then that oven is hot. It heats the fire bricks in there, and then it's going to have a more normal temperature for a longer amount of time. Whereas when you first are getting that fire going, that's going to keep going and going and going and going. It's more something that you have to watch more. I remember having a friend come and stay, and she wanted to make banana bread. She wanted to do it all by herself, and I thought, well, that's great, I let her do it. So she did, and she started reading a book. And I came back in the door and she was reading her book.
And there's smoke in the air. No.
And I'm like, well, yeah, when you got the wood cook stove, you do have to keep more of an eye on it. That's all. You can't just turn the dial and expect that for that hour it's going to stay that same temperature. But there are lots of ways to regulate the temperature.
With the draft.
I can shut down those bell drafts, I can turn off the oven control. So then the air is going to bypass the oven. And so that's going to cool my oven some. And with the wood cook stove, I find you can even prop the door open for a couple minutes. Let it cool down a little bit, close it back up, and check the temperature again in a couple minutes. So it's just a learning curve, but I really enjoy cooking with it now, and I don't think I'd go back. I just love it. So
what's funny to me is, I grew up, my grandparents Ukrainian, they've both passed away now. But out on the farm in Saskatchewan, and every summer I was out there working in the garden and learning and helping part of the canning and everything like that. Back then I probably thought it was a little bit of slave labor, but I'm sure glad that I know that stuff now. Because as a child you just want to play, right? But I'm so glad that I learned those skills because it's so fast how these skills have gone. My grandma always had the wood cook stove. I can still remember early in the morning she would get up and the first thing she did was get the fire going, and then she'd go out and do the chores and come back and get the breakfast and that sort of thing. And so it's just relearning these valuable skills again and making them a practice in our home and teaching them to our children.
In the summer, what do you do?
Okay, so this is a great one.
Okay, so in the summer, I cook off of the sun, I call it. So you know how you can get electric burners? I have 2 electric burners at home, and on any sunny days, I can take advantage of that sunshine, and I just turn the electric burners on it to do all my boiling. Now, for baking, it makes it a different story. So that's why my husband's supposed to be making me a summer kitchen. But for now, we have an outdoor oven as well. And I find that you still, through the summer, you get a rainy day where you can do a lot of baking, and it doesn't matter because you open the windows and you can dry your laundry at the same time and still bake. Now, the nice thing about the summer kitchen, like Ivan and Phyllis's house, is set up so that it's almost like they have a summer kitchen because their kitchen has windows at both ends, a door that separates the kitchen from the rest of the house, and so they cook all summer in that kitchen and just keep that door shut, keep those windows open, and in no time it's cool again, right? So there's,
Well,
I was raised with a cook stove too, and my mom, but she had a separate building for herself.
Yeah.
And that was the stove out there, so it didn't heat the house and get it.
and see, that's if you can, if you're building a place, like we're looking at you know, at some point, hopefully building a place, that's what the ideal would be to have. You've got your stove in the house, that's your main stove that, you know, and because a lot of these stoves you can hook up to your water tank as well. And that, so they're going to help heat the water in your home. Then you can have a screened-in porch, which is what they're hoping to build on theirs. Then you have a wood-cook stove out there that, if you want, you can hook it up to the same pipe so that you're getting your hot water in your house through the summer, but you don't have the cooking heat in your house or your canning heat. Because when you're canning and you're pumping through the jars and you're doing all that, and to get a good boil, you're going to make that stove hot. So...
yeah, that's where I would say that for the canning and the baking and cooking in the summertime, I actually like the old-fashioned wood stoves, and that's what we picked up for our for that. Like for in the house in the winter, you know, I love the flame view for it keeps the house warm, and at the same time, since I've already got a fire going, I can be cooking and baking all the time, and I don't feel like I'm wasting anything. You know, I'm drying my laundry, I'm heating my hot water, I'm cooking, I'm baking. And it's all using that same firewood, right? So that's really nice. But in the summertime, the old stoves had a small firebox, and you would put almost like kindling in.
yeah.
So that would burn. It would be hot very fast and gone very fast,
You just have to
which
keep
is
feeding it.
ideal because then, but it's up really close to the surface. Whereas the larger fireboxes that are for heating your house as well as cooking, the fireboxes are large, the fire is lower, and you can get a shelf. You can also get a shelf to raise it up, which would be handy if you're going to have to use it in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
But those old ones, that's what we plan on putting in our summer kitchen, is a nice old one that has the smaller firebox.
So there's some tips for doing that and some different ways of doing things, like if you're looking at moving out and ways to work your wood stove. Yes.
Have barbecues that have lids that you can bake into. So like the wood stove or wood burning barbecues, they're like, I don't know what they call them here, but in Europe,
I haven't seen them.
they're like little,
Have you seen them?
little barbecues with like a lid, like a dome lid, and you can pretty much bake a banana bread or whatever, just like in a wood cook stove.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
Barbecue that you can do outside.
Sounds like that's more common in Europe, and I don't know that I've seen a lot of that here.
And then, as I mentioned, we have the outdoor oven. So that's the other thing, is we made a clay outdoor oven with fire brick on the bottom, and you can fit a lot of loaves of bread. And you know, first thing to go in is pizza, and then afterwards you can do your breads, you can do a casserole, and at the very end of the day, you can put in something you want to, either like at pumpkins, we put in a bunch of pumpkins, and then overnight till the next morning, they're perfectly cooked in the morning, right? So then you can just scoop it out and put it in the freezer, or dehydrate your granola. You know, that's a great time for it. You put a bunch of granola in at the end of the day and do it all night. The other thing is, I have a neighbor that made himself, it was really cool, out of a stovepipe. He put 2 caps on either end, he put a couple legs, and he puts this over a fire outside, and he cooks his loaf of bread in there. So there's lots of things you can look into.
I know that just like I got this rectangle canner, I know that they call it an oven for any stovetop. So you can put that on your wood cook stove, or like let's say you don't have a wood cook you just have a wood burn, like a freestanding wood stove, but it's not a wood cook stove, you know, and you can't afford to get a whole wood cook stove at this time. You can get this oven, you know, for any oven, and it sits on top, and you can bake your bread and everything like that in there. So there's different options out there for what you can do for where you're at and for what your needs are.
And there's always the solar ovens.
Yeah, there's the
The
solar.
solar ovens, you know, you've probably seen sun ovens, and you can make things that are similar. If your husband's are handy, you can find plans online. And
Yeah.
so there's lots of options for summertime cooking.
Yeah. So there you go.